thank you so much for being here today.
Really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's dive in. Talk to me about exactly what your company does.
Yeah, so Veradermics is a medical dermatology company, and really the origin of the company was the idea that there are more than 3,000 skin conditions, many of which have no FDA-approved treatment, have had minimal innovation in decades, and there's minimal innovation in the horizon. And so we set out with the mindset that we could leverage our end-user knowledge as physicians to identify treatments that address real therapeutic challenges within dermatology.
What was your founding story?
So the founding story is probably sillier than anything, which is that I was at an American Academy of Dermatology meeting, and I got nominated to attend this pre-meeting for Advancing Innovation in Dermatology, which is an organization that promotes physician entrepreneurs and innovators. At the conference, I heard about a variety of events, and one of them was an event that they no longer do, unfortunately, called Hacking Dermatology. And I met my co-founder there, and the origin of the company was that basically we're having breakfast. He says to me, what if we could administer an immune stimulant with what is essentially a Band-Aid? So, that's a great idea. Croissant falls out of my mouth. And now it's 4 years later. We have 5 products. The lead products are for pattern hair loss, also known as androgenetic alopecia, and then for common warts.
Tell me about your funding journey. Was it hard to convince investors to take a chance on you, and how much have you raised so far?
So we've raised nearly $40 million, and I think we've been incredibly fortunate in that identifying many of our critical investors has occurred very serendipitously, not necessarily through these intentional approaches that we all employ to raise capital, but just during day-to-day interactions. And the original roughly $2 million we raised all came from physicians. So more than 25 physicians, they said, hey, we recognize that warts are a problem. We recognize that these other dermatologic conditions need treatment. And they believed in the team and investing in us. And that support then translated into more of a traditional venture round. I think people saw that we weren't paying our KOLs, they were investing in us, and that was really an exciting and different journey for most of the investors. We were then fortunate to get the backing of Dr. Vlad Koric, who is the CEO of Biohaven, and John Childs, who's the managing director of JW Childs Associates.
Now, a little bit of a fun one for you. If you could travel back in time, and if you could tell yourself one piece of advice the day before you started your company, what would you say?
Ooh, that is a good question. I think that the answer to that is likely not everybody gives good advice. We have some tremendous thought partners. I've got to work with some of the leading minds in the industry, people who have been very generous with their time to help in my growth, to mentor me and to mentor the company. But it is interesting because as you move through each phase of the company, the thought leaders or the thought partners that you need are very, very different. And I don't think I appreciated how someone who is really savvy at the seed stage may not necessarily understand the Series B or crossover stage, and then may not necessarily understand what does it take to take a company public. And having the right people at the right time to assist you is just critical.
Is there one business rule that you operate by no matter what?
I approach all our interactions as though the other person has a piece of information that I don't know that I need to get. And there are lots of times where I think it's easier to tell people and not ask. And everyone in the room is sitting there, they know something you don't know, or they're thinking something, they're all thinking the same thing when you walk out of the room. And so I try to approach everything with a lot of questions. I think my team would say that every interaction with me is 20 questions, but I found that to be super effective. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel like I often walk out of a room with a very different outcome than I anticipated.
And one last question for you, Reed. What would you like your legacy to be?
That's a very difficult question.
I know.
And I think at the end of the day, most of what we are doing is about building product, and it's about building something that has actual value to the people who use it. And I would hope that those products would become synonymous with the conditions and would really take away these therapeutic challenges that we're trying to address.